In a world grappling with ethical dilemmas and seeking mindful living, the Islamic concept of Halalan Toyyiban offers a guiding light. Often people associate Islamic principles with restrictions. However, Halalan Toyyiban goes beyond mere permissibility. It encompasses a holistic approach to life, emphasizing purity, ethics, and well-being in every aspect. This concept invites us to reflect on our choices and their impact on ourselves, our communities, and the planet. Halalan Toyyiban transcends religious boundaries. It speaks to the universal human desire for a life lived with intention and integrity. By understanding and embracing its principles, we embark on a journey of conscious consumption, ethical conduct, and spiritual growth. This journey benefits not only Muslims, but anyone seeking a more meaningful and responsible way of life. The beauty of Halalan Toyyiban lies in its simplicity and practicality. It encourages us to ask ourselves, is what we consume, produce, or engage in permissible? Is it pure? Is it beneficial? These questions guide us towards making choices that nourish our bodies and souls while contributing to a more just and sustainable world. The foundation of Halalan Toyyiban rests on two fundamental pillars, halal and tayyib. Halal, often translated as lawful or permitted, refers to what is permissible according to Islamic law. It encompasses various aspects of life, including dietary guidelines, financial transactions, and social interactions. Tayyib, on the other hand, delves deeper into the realm of purity and goodness. It encompasses what is wholesome, ethical, and beneficial for our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. While halal sets the boundaries of permissibility, tayyib encourages us to strive for excellence within those boundaries. It reminds us that merely consuming or engaging in something permissible is not enough. We must also consider its quality, origin, and impact. For instance, while consuming a certain food item might be halal, tayyib prompts us to consider whether it is nutritious, ethically sourced, and environmentally friendly. This holistic approach extends beyond food to encompass all aspects of our lives. From the clothes we wear to the investments we make, Halalan Toyyiban calls for mindfulness and intentionality. By considering the ethical implications of our choices, we elevate our actions beyond mere transactions to become acts of worship and contributions to a greater good. The concept of tayyib extends far beyond the food we eat, encompassing every facet of our lives. It encourages us to consider the origins of the products we consume, the ethics of the companies we support, and the impact of our choices on the environment and society. For example, tayyib prompts us to question the labor practices behind the clothing we wear and the environmental impact of the technology we use. In the realm of food, tayyib emphasizes consuming food that is not only permissible but also wholesome, nutritious, and free from harmful substances. It encourages us to prioritize fresh, natural ingredients over processed foods laden with artificial additives and preservatives. Moreover, tayyib extends to the treatment of animals, advocating for humane and ethical practices in animal agriculture. Beyond consumption, tayyib guides our interactions with others and our conduct in society. It emphasizes honesty, fairness, and integrity in our dealings, both personal and professional. It encourages us to be mindful of our words and actions, ensuring they are respectful, kind, and considerate of others. Living a Halalan Toyyiban lifestyle doesn't require drastic changes. It's about making conscious choices in our everyday routines. Start with small steps. When grocery shopping, read labels carefully, opting for natural, minimally processed foods. Support local farmers markets and businesses committed to ethical sourcing and sustainability. Extend this mindfulness beyond food. Consider the ethical implications of your purchases. Are your clothes made ethically? Does the company you're buying from treat its workers fairly? Support businesses that align with your values. Incorporate tayyib into your daily interactions. Be honest in your communication and dealings. Treat others with kindness and respect, even in challenging situations. Remember, every action is an opportunity to embody the principles of Halalan Toyyiban. The global challenge maintaining purity in a complex world. In today's globalized world, maintaining Halalan Toyyiban practices can be challenging. Complex supply chains, mass production, and the pursuit of profit often overshadow ethical considerations. It requires conscious effort to navigate this landscape and make choices aligned with our values. However, this challenge also presents an opportunity. By demanding transparency and ethical practices from businesses, consumers can drive positive change. Supporting companies committed to fair trade, sustainable sourcing, and ethical treatment of workers can shift the paradigm towards a more just and equitable global market. The responsibility lies not only with businesses but also with individuals. Educating ourselves about the origins of the products we consume and the practices of the companies we support is crucial. By making informed choices, we can contribute to a more ethical and sustainable global economy. Modern interpretations, ethical consumerism, and sustainable living. The principles of Halalan Toyyiban resonate deeply with the growing movements of ethical consumerism and sustainable living. People are becoming increasingly aware of the impact of their choices on the environment, society, and their own well-being. Ethical consumerism encourages consumers to use their purchasing power to support businesses that align with their values, such as fair trade, organic farming, and cruelty-free practices. Sustainable living promotes reducing our ecological footprint by minimizing waste, conserving energy, and making eco-friendly choices. These movements align seamlessly with the principles of Halalan Toyyiban, which emphasizes mindful consumption, ethical sourcing, and environmental responsibility. By embracing these values, we contribute to a more just, equitable, and sustainable world for ourselves and future generations. The universal appeal of Halalan Toyyiban benefits for all. While rooted in Islamic teachings, the principles of Halalan Toyyiban hold universal appeal and offer benefits for everyone, regardless of their faith or background. The core values of purity, ethics, and well-being resonate with the human desire for a meaningful and fulfilling life. By adopting a Halalan Toyyiban approach, we cultivate a deeper awareness of our interconnectedness with the world around us. We become more conscious of the impact of our choices on our health, our communities, and the environment. This awareness fosters a sense of responsibility and inspires us to live in a way that benefits not only ourselves, but all beings. Whether it's choosing ethically sourced products, supporting fair trade practices, or minimizing our environmental impact, every step we take towards living Halalan Toyyiban contributes to a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world for all. Towards a brighter future, embracing Halalan Toyyiban for a better tomorrow. As we navigate the complexities of the modern world, Halalan Toyyiban offers a compass to guide us towards a brighter future. By embracing its principles of purity, ethics, and well-being, we can create a world where our choices reflect our values and contribute to the well-being of all. This requires a collective effort. Individuals, communities, businesses, and governments must work together to promote ethical practices, sustainable living, and conscious consumption. By aligning our actions with our values, we can create a world where prosperity and well-being are shared by all. Let us embark on this journey of transformation, guided by the principles of Halalan Toyyiban. Let us strive to live in a way that honors our humanity, protects our planet, and creates a legacy of compassion and sustainability for generations to come. Conclusion. A journey of consciousness and responsibility. Halalan Toyyiban is not merely a set of rules or restrictions, it is a journey of consciousness and responsibility. It is a call to live with intention, to make choices that align with our values, and to strive for purity and goodness in all aspects of our lives. This journey is not without its challenges. In a world driven by consumerism and profit, it requires conscious effort to resist the allure of convenience and instant gratification. However, the rewards of living Halalan Toyyiban far outweigh the challenges. By embracing Halalan Toyyiban, we embark on a path of self-discovery, spiritual growth, and meaningful contribution to the world. We become agents of positive change, transforming ourselves and inspiring others to live with greater awareness, compassion, and responsibility. This is the essence of Halalan Toyyiban, a journey that leads us towards a more fulfilling, ethical, and sustainable way of life for ourselves and generations to come. Halalan Toyyiban, beyond halal, towards comprehensive purity introduction. The concept of Halalan Toyyiban goes beyond the mere permissibility of halal to encompass a broader, holistic approach to life and consumption in Islam. Halalan refers to what is lawful or permissible, while Toyyiban translates to what is good, pure, and wholesome. Together they form a principle that not only dictates what Muslims may consume, but also how they should live their lives in accordance with Islamic ethics, health, and environmental consciousness. Definition and scope. Halal. This aspect deals with the permissibility of food or actions, ensuring they do not violate Islamic law. It focuses on the source, method of preparation, and the absence of forbidden elements like pork or alcohol. Tayyib. This goes further by emphasizing the quality, cleanliness, safety, and ethical considerations of what is consumed or used. Tayyib includes health and nutrition, ensuring that food is not only permissible but also nutritious and beneficial for health. Ethical sourcing. The treatment of animals, labor practices, and environmental impact are considered. For example, animals should be raised and slaughtered humanely, and products should be sourced in ways that do not exploit workers or harm the environment. Purity. This extends to the absence of harmful substances or conditions in the production process like pesticides or pollutants. Spiritual well-being, consuming or using items that are good for one's spiritual and moral well-being. Application in daily life, food and drink. Beyond halal certification, Halalan Toyyiban encourages choosing foods that are nutritious, organic when possible, and free from harmful additives. It also extends to how food is prepared, emphasizing cleanliness and intentions. Lifestyle and consumption. This principle applies to all aspects of life, including clothing, cosmetics, and household items. Products should not only be permissible, but also ethically produced, environmentally friendly, and safe for use. Economic and social practices. Business practices should be fair, transparent, and beneficial to society. This includes fair trade, avoiding exploitative practices, and ensuring that products contribute positively to the community and environment. Challenges in implementation. Globalization with the international trade of goods, ensuring that products meet both halal and tayyib standards becomes complex, requiring extensive oversight and certification processes. Consumer awareness. There's a need for education on what Halalan Toyyiban truly means, as consumers might focus on halal alone, overlooking the broader implications of tayyib. Regulation and standardization. The lack of uniform standards for tayyib can lead to inconsistencies in how these principles are applied and certified globally. Modern interpretations and movements. Halal and ethical consumerism. There's a growing movement within Muslim communities to advocate for Halalan Toyyiban, pushing for ethical consumerism that aligns with Islamic values. Sustainability. Environmental considerations are becoming more emphasized under the umbrella of tayyib, with initiatives promoting sustainable agriculture, waste reduction, and ethical treatment of animals. Health and well-being. There's an increased focus on how Halalan Toyyiban can contribute to personal health, with dietary guidelines reflecting not just permissibility, but also the health benefits of certain foods. Conclusion. Halalan Toyyiban represents an ideal in Islamic living where the focus isn't solely on what is technically allowed, but on what is beneficial in all aspects of life. It invites Muslims to think critically about their consumption patterns, encouraging a lifestyle that aligns with Islamic teachings on purity, ethics, health, and environmental stewardship. As the world grows more interconnected and aware of global ethical issues, Halalan Toyyiban serves as a guiding principle, not just for Muslims, but for anyone seeking a life of integrity and wholesomeness. The intricacies of halal slaughter. A comprehensive overview. Introduction. Halal slaughter is not merely a method of preparing meat for consumption. It is an integral part of Islamic dietary laws, embodying ethical, religious, and health considerations. The term halal translates to permissible in Arabic, and when it comes to slaughter, it ensures that the process aligns with Islamic teachings on cleanliness, compassion, and respect for life. This essay explores the detailed practices of halal slaughter, its principles, modern adaptations, and the challenges it faces in contemporary settings. Core principles of halal slaughter. Islamic law stipulates several fundamental principles for halal slaughter: animal welfare and health. The animal must be in good health and treated with care before slaughter. This reflects the Islamic principle of not causing unnecessary harm or suffering to living beings. Slaughterman's qualifications. The person performing the slaughter should ideally be a Muslim, though there are allowances for Jews or Christians in some interpretations, provided they are knowledgeable about the halal process. Invocation of Allah's name. At the moment of slaughter, the name of Allah must be invoked, typically with the phrase Bismillah Allahu Akbar, signifying that the act is done in remembrance and respect of God. Method of slaughter. The technique involves a single swift cut to the trachea, esophagus, carotid arteries and jugular veins without severing the spinal cord. This method is designed to ensure quick death with minimal pain, allowing for the maximum drainage of blood, which is considered impure in Islamic law. Bleeding out. A crucial aspect is allowing the animal to bleed out completely, as blood is haram and must be removed from the meat to keep it halal. Modern adaptations and variations. The traditional practice of halal slaughter has adapted to meet contemporary demands and ethical considerations. Stunning. While traditional halal does not include stunning, modern practices sometimes incorporate reversible, non-lethal stunning methods like electrical stunning for poultry or cattle, ensuring the animal is unconscious but still alive at the time of the cut. This has sparked debate, with some scholars accepting it as long as it does not kill the animal prematurely. Mechanical slaughter. In large-scale slaughterhouses, mechanical methods are sometimes employed. However, there's contention over whether this complies with halal, particularly concerning the invocation of Allah's name for each animal. Regional interpretations. Halal certification and practices can vary significantly across different countries or even among different certifying bodies due to varying interpretations of Islamic law. Animal handling and post-slaughter procedures. Restraint. Animals are restrained in a way that minimizes distress. For larger animals, specific devices like boxes are used to hold them securely. Post-slaughter. After the cut, the animal must bleed out completely and be confirmed dead before further processing like skinning or dressing begins. Cleanliness. High standards of hygiene are maintained throughout the process to prevent contamination with non-halal substances. Certification and monitoring. Halal certification bodies play a critical role in ensuring compliance. Halal certification. Facilities undergo rigorous inspections to earn and maintain halal certification, which includes regular audits to confirm that the slaughter process adheres to halal standards. Ongoing monitoring. These bodies conduct periodic reviews to ensure that practices remain halal, adapting to changes in production or new products. Challenges and criticisms. Animal welfare. Critics of halal slaughter, particularly non-stun methods, argue that they might not be as humane as claimed. Proponents counter that when performed correctly, it's a humane method due to the swiftness and completeness of the cut. Economic and regulatory issues. Halal slaughter can be more labor-intensive, potentially increasing costs and complicating regulations, especially in diverse markets where halal must coexist with other standards. Transparency and trust. There's also a challenge in ensuring transparency and consumer trust, especially with the globalization of halal products. Conclusion. Halal slaughter is a ritualistic practice steeped in Islamic tradition, aiming to balance spiritual purity with the humane treatment of animals. As the world becomes more interconnected, the process has evolved to address modern ethical standards while still adhering to religious mandates. However, this evolution brings its own set of challenges, from animal welfare debates to economic considerations. Understanding these intricacies helps in appreciating the depth of halal not just as a dietary law, but as a comprehensive lifestyle choice reflecting a commitment to faith, ethics and health. Sustainable living in Islam. Principles, practices and modern interpretations. Introduction. Sustainable living within the Islamic framework is not a modern concept, but one deeply rooted in the faith's teachings. Islam provides a comprehensive guide to living in harmony with nature, emphasizing stewardship, moderation, and justice. This essay explores the principles, practices, and contemporary applications of sustainable living from an Islamic perspective. Islamic principles of sustainability. Khalifa, stewardship. Muslims are considered stewards or guardians of the earth, entrusted with its care. The Quran states, "And it is He who has made you successors, Khalifa, upon the earth." Quran 6:165. This principle implies a responsibility to maintain and protect the environment for future generations. Balance, mizan. Islam advocates for balance in all aspects of life, including consumption and use of resources. The Quran warns against excess and do not waste, for Allah does not like the wasteful. Quran 7:31. Justice, ADL. Environmental justice is inherent in Islamic teachings, ensuring that resources are used in a way that benefits all of creation and not just humans. This includes fair distribution and conservation of natural resources. Conservation and moderation, israf, the prohibition of wastage and excess consumption is emphasized. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, taught, "Do not waste water even if you perform your ablution on the bank of an abundant river." Environmental hygiene. Keeping the environment clean is part of Islamic practice, as cleanliness is half of faith. This extends to public spaces, water sources, and personal hygiene. Practices for sustainable living. Dietary choices, halal and tayyib. Choosing food that is not only permissible but also pure, which often leads to natural and organic choices. Moderation in eating. The Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, advised against overeating and encouraged sharing food, which naturally aligns with sustainable consumption. Water conservation. Efficient use of water, particularly during ritual cleansing, wudu, exemplifies a commitment to conservation. Agriculture and animal care, permaculture. Islamic teachings support practices like permaculture, where land is used in a way that mimics natural ecosystems, promoting biodiversity and soil health. Animal welfare. The Prophet's guidance on animal treatment encourages sustainable and humane livestock farming. Energy. Use, encouragement towards natural light, reducing electricity use, and exploring renewable energy sources like solar power, which resonates with the Islamic principle of using resources wisely. Waste management. The principle of not causing harm, la zarar wa la zirar, extends to waste management, promoting recycling, composting, and reducing landfill waste. Community and sharing. Practices like zakat, charity, and sadaqah, voluntary giving, support a sustainable community by ensuring resources are redistributed, reducing excess, and promoting social equity. Modern interpretations and applications. Green mosques. Initiatives like the Green Mosque project aim to make religious spaces more environmentally friendly by adopting energy-efficient technologies and promoting environmental education. Islamic finance for sustainability. Islamic finance principles that prohibit interest and promote risk sharing are being leveraged for investments in sustainable projects like renewable energy or green buildings. Education and advocacy. There's a growing movement among Muslim scholars and activists to educate communities about Islam's environmental ethos, encouraging actions like tree planting, which the Prophet Muhammad, PBUH, praised as a form of charity. Policy influence. At international levels, declarations like the Islamic Declaration on Global Climate Change call for adherence to Islamic environmental ethics in policy making. Challenges and opportunities. Cultural misunderstandings. There's sometimes a disconnect between traditional practices and modern environmental science, which can be bridged through education. Economic constraints. Implementing sustainable practices can be resource-intensive, but Islamic teachings on moderation and community support can offer solutions. Global collaboration. The universal values in Islam regarding the environment can serve as a bridge for interfaith and international cooperation on sustainability issues. Conclusion. Sustainable living in Islam is a holistic approach that integrates religious duties with environmental stewardship. It offers a framework where faith, ethics, and practical daily actions align to promote not just individual well-being but also planetary health. As the world faces environmental crises, the Islamic perspective on sustainability can provide both inspiration and practical guidance towards a more balanced and just use of Earth's resources. The tapestry of life, weaving sustainability with faith. Once upon a time, in the vast landscape of human history, there lived a community guided by a faith that wove sustainability into the very fabric of their existence. This is the story of how Islam, through its teachings and practices, became a beacon for living sustainably, not just for its followers, but for all who seek harmony with Earth. In the heart of this community was the concept of Khalifa, a principle that deemed every individual a steward of the Earth responsible for its care. The Quran whispered this duty into the ears of its believers, reminding them, "And it is He who has made you successors upon the Earth." This wasn't just a title, it was a call to action, a divine entrustment to nurture and protect the planet for the generations yet to come. The community lived by the principle of mizan, balance. They knew that life was like a delicate tapestry where every thread, every act of consumption needed to be woven with care. The Prophet Muhammad once taught them, Do not waste water even if you perform your ablution on the bank of an abundant river, instilling in them a respect for even the most plentiful of resources. Justice, or ADL, was another thread in this tapestry, ensuring that the earth's gifts were shared fairly among all creatures. In their daily lives, they practiced israf, moderation, understanding that excess was not just harmful to the soul, but to the earth itself. They ate just enough, used just enough, ensuring that nothing was squandered. Their dietary choices reflected this philosophy. They chose foods that were not only halal, but also tayyib, pure, wholesome, and beneficial. In their kitchens, meals were prepared with gratitude, mindful of the nourishment provided, echoing the Prophet's advice on moderation in eating and sharing food. Water, the essence of life, was revered. They practiced conservation in every drop, remembering the teachings during their daily ablutions, a ritual not just of cleanliness, but of environmental consciousness. Their gardens were a testament to permaculture, where life thrived in a balanced ecosystem, mirroring the natural order Allah had set forth. In their dealings with animals, they adhered to principles of welfare, understanding that all creatures were part of Allah's creation. Their livestock were treated with kindness, reflecting the Prophet's compassion for all living beings. Energy from the sun was harnessed, not just as a modern innovation, but as an ancient practice of using what was given abundantly by nature. They turned towards natural light, reducing their reliance on other forms of energy, embodying the wisdom of using resources wisely. Waste, they learned, was not just a sign of excess, but a sin against the earth. They managed their waste with care, recycling, composting, ensuring that the land remained pure, following the principle of la zarar wa la zira, do no harm. Community was at the heart of their sustainability. Through practices like zakat and sadaqah, they shared wealth, reducing excess and promoting social equity. Their mosques, now known as green mosques, stood as symbols of this commitment, built with eco-friendly materials, powered by renewable energy, and echoing teachings of environmental stewardship. Islamic finance, with its principles of shared risk and prohibition of interest, found new purpose in funding sustainable ventures, showing that faith and finance could work together for the planet's good. Scholars and activists within the community took to education, weaving the stories of the Prophet's love for nature into modern environmental science, inspiring tree planting, which was once praised by Muhammad as a form of charity. They advocated for policies that reflected Islamic environmental ethics, influencing global discussions on climate change. Yet in this story, there were challenges. Misunderstandings between traditional practices and modern science, economic constraints, and the need for global collaboration were hurdles. But each challenge was met with the same spirit of resilience and innovation that had always characterized their faith. In this tale, the community of believers showed that sustainable living was not just about saving the environment, but about living out the teachings of Islam in every aspect of life. They proved that faith could be a powerful tool for change, weaving a tapestry where every thread of life was in harmony with the earth, demonstrating that in the heart of Islam there lies a blueprint for sustainable living for all humanity. As the story unfolded across generations, the community's commitment to sustainable living became a living testament to the teachings of Islam, adapting and growing with each era. The narrative of sustainability took on new dimensions as the community engaged with the broader world. They shared their practices not as a doctrine but as a way of life that transcended cultural and religious boundaries. They organized interfaith dialogues where stories of environmental stewardship from various traditions were shared, finding common ground in the love for Earth. One such dialogue led to a remarkable project, the Gardens of Peace. Here, members from different faiths came together to plant trees, each one symbolizing a commitment to peace and sustainability. The garden was not just a place of beauty, but a living classroom where children learned about biodiversity, the importance of bees, and the stories of how trees in Islamic tradition were seen as acts of charity. The community also innovated with Islamic microfinance for environmental projects. Small loans, devoid of interest, were given to local farmers to transition to organic farming or to start beekeeping, promoting pollination and biodiversity. These initiatives not only supported the local economy but also ensured that the practices were sustainable and in line with Islamic principles of justice and charity. In the realm of education, they developed eco-madrasas, where traditional Islamic education was complemented with lessons on climate change, water conservation, and renewable energy. Here, students learn not just to read the Quran, but to apply its teachings in daily life, understanding verses like, "And we have sent down from the rainwater in due measure, and we have made the earth grow thereby," as calls to action for water management. The community's storytelling tradition became a tool for environmental advocacy. They shared tales of the Prophet Muhammad's love for animals, his planting of trees, and his advice on conserving resources through parables and fables that resonated with both young and old. These stories were not only told in mosques, but at community gatherings, environmental workshops, and through social media, reaching a global audience. As the world grappled with climate change, this community stood out for their proactive approach. They launched the Climate Hajj initiative, where pilgrims to Mecca were encouraged to offset their carbon footprint by participating in reforestation projects or supporting renewable energy installations in their home countries. This was a novel interpretation of Hajj, not just a journey towards the Kaaba, but also towards ecological responsibility. However, the journey was not without its challenges. There were times when economic pressures pushed for less sustainable practices, or when modernization seemed at odds with traditional methods. Yet they navigated these with wisdom, finding ways to integrate technology, like solar panels on mosques, with age-old practices of conservation, ensuring that modernity didn't erode their core values. The story of this community's sustainable living was one of resilience, innovation, and faith, showed that Islam could offer profound insights into living sustainably, not just through religious texts, but through lived experience. They demonstrated that sustainability was not an addendum to faith, but integral to it, a practice that could weave together the diverse threads of human society into a tapestry of hope, peace, and respect for all of Allah's creation. As our tale reaches its conclusion, remember that this story doesn't end here. It continues with every sunrise, every tree planted, every drop of water saved, and every act of kindness towards the earth. It's a story that invites all of us, regardless of faith, to become part of this ever-continuing narrative of sustainable living where each of us can be a steward, a guardian, a Khalifa of our planet. Overview of the manuscripts, collection and preservation. Over 1,000 manuscripts, primarily from the 19th and early 20th centuries, were collected by Paul and Ulrike Unschuld and are now preserved in Berlin's State Library and Ethnological Museum. These manuscripts are invaluable for understanding the less documented aspects of Chinese medical history. Types of folk medicine. Pharmacotherapy included the use of local, often rural medicinal substances, simple recipes, and even dirty substances like human or animal excretions, which were not commonly used in literati medicine. Manual techniques, piercing, cauterization, and surgery. Despite being marginalized by literati medicine, these techniques were common in folk practices. Lampwick cauterization was notably prevalent, especially for treating conditions like smallpox or fright wind. Bone setting and massage techniques like bone setting, jungu, and massage, tuina, were integral to folk healthcare, particularly for treating trauma and musculoskeletal issues. Childbirth and abortion. Folk medicine played a significant role in obstetrics with apotropaic recipes and manual techniques for childbirth. Abortion was also documented with recipes using toxic substances, often applied externally. Dietetics. Unlike literati medicine, folk dietetics did not distinguish sharply between food and medicine, integrating dietary advice with pharmaceutical treatments. Magico-religious practices. A significant aspect included apotropaic rituals, divination, and the use of amulets, spells, and ritual movements, reflecting a blend of Taoist, Buddhist, and local folk beliefs. Authors and their context, diversity of practitioners. The manuscripts were authored by various groups including non-medical individuals, folk healers, regular physicians, itinerant healers, magico-religious practitioners, martial arts practitioners, and pharmacists. Each group contributed uniquely to the folk medical practices, with varying degrees of formal medical training and reliance on traditional or heterodox methods. Economic and practical considerations. Many practices were influenced by the need for treatments to be affordable, accessible, and effective, which sometimes led to the use of trickery or the modification of recipes to appear more valuable. Scholarly analysis. The manuscript collection provides a bottom-up perspective on Chinese medical history, contrasting with the more theoretical and elite-focused literati medicine. It highlights the fluidity and intersectionality between folk and literati traditions, showing how practices and knowledge flowed between different social and professional strata. The review uses these manuscripts to critique and expand upon existing scholarship, pointing out areas where folk practices have been underrepresented or misunderstood, especially in the context of pharmacology, surgery, and religious healing. Conclusion. The Berlin manuscripts reveal a rich tapestry of folk medical practices that were practical, influenced by local resources, and deeply interwoven with cultural, religious, and economic aspects of life in late imperial and early republican China. They challenge narratives that focus solely on the elite, scholarly aspects of Chinese medicine, offering insights into how healthcare was accessed and practiced by the broader population. Interconnections and influence, integration of folk and literati medicine. The manuscripts demonstrate that the boundaries between folk and literati medicine were not as clear-cut as often assumed. Even well-educated physicians included folk remedies and practices in their work, showing a pragmatic approach to healing where effectiveness trumped theory. Magical and secular overlap. The integration of magical practices into what might otherwise be considered secular medicine was common. This is evidenced by the use of amulets, rituals, and divination alongside pharmaceutical or manual treatments, suggesting a holistic approach to health where spirituality played a significant role. Specific practices highlighted: acupuncture and moxibustion. Although marginalized during the Qing dynasty, these practices continued in folk settings, often without the theoretical underpinnings found in literati texts. The manuscripts suggest these were practical, quick solutions for many ailments, particularly in rural or less affluent settings. Use of local resources. The reliance on local flora and fauna for medicinal purposes underscores the adaptive nature of folk medicine, tailored to the environment and availability of resources. Childbirth practices. The manuscripts highlight a continuity of certain practices from ancient times, like the use of amulets and spells during childbirth, indicating a resistance to the more scholarly dismissal of these methods in printed texts. Abortion. The documentation of abortion methods in the manuscripts contrasts with the more cautious approach in printed literature, suggesting that in practice, these procedures were more common, though fraught with risks due to the use of highly toxic substances. Cultural and historical context. Economic influence. The economic necessity for healers to make a living is reflected in the simplification of treatments, use of local materials, and sometimes the adulteration or marketing of medicinal recipes to enhance their appeal or perceived efficacy. Social stratification. Folk medicine was for everybody, serving a broad spectrum of society, from the rural poor to those unable to access more formal medical care, highlighting its role as an equalizer in health practices. Challenges and limitations. Lack of systematic research. The scarcity of scholarly work on these manuscripts before Unschuld and Zheng's cataloguing suggests a historical oversight in acknowledging the breadth and depth of folk medicine in China's medical history. Preservation and accessibility. The preservation of such manuscripts outside of China poses challenges for access by Chinese scholars, potentially skewing the narrative of Chinese medical history. Future research directions, interdisciplinary studies. The manuscripts could benefit from further research combining anthropology, history, pharmacology, and religious studies to fully appreciate the cultural dimensions of these medical practices. Comparative analysis. Comparing these practices with those from other cultural or temporal contexts could shed light on universal patterns in folk medicine or unique Chinese contributions to global medical knowledge. Digital humanities. Digitizing these manuscripts for broader scholarly access could open new avenues for research, including computational analysis of patterns in medical practices, terminology, or the evolution of treatment methods. Concluding thoughts. The Berlin manuscripts offer a unique lens through which to view the medical history of China, emphasizing the lived reality of healthcare rather than idealized texts. They serve as a reminder that medicine, especially in its folk forms, is deeply embedded in the cultural, social, and economic fabric of a society, reflecting not just health, but the human condition in all its complexity. Implications for modern medicine, integration in contemporary practice. The insights from these manuscripts can inform current practices in traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, particularly in how folk methods can be integrated or acknowledged in modern therapeutic approaches. Today's TCM might revisit these practices to understand the origins of some of its techniques or to appreciate the holistic approach to healing. Holistic health. The intertwining of medical treatment with spiritual or ritualistic practices highlights the holistic view of health in traditional settings, which could inspire modern integrative medicine practices that look beyond purely biomedical solutions. Pharmacological insights. The use of local and sometimes unconventional substances in folk medicine could lead to revisiting these materials for pharmacological research, exploring their potential benefits or understanding historical uses that might inform current drug development. Education and training, medical curriculum. Incorporating the study of these manuscripts into medical education could provide a more comprehensive understanding of Chinese medicine's history, emphasizing the importance of cultural context in medical practice. Preservation of knowledge. There's a need to train scholars in the deciphering and understanding of these manuscripts, ensuring that the knowledge they contain is not lost but rather utilized to enhance both historical and medical knowledge. Cultural reflection, identity and heritage. For China, these manuscripts are part of its cultural heritage, reflecting not just medical practices but also societal values, religious beliefs, and the everyday life of its people. They serve as a reminder of the resilience and adaptability of cultural practices through times of change. Cultural exchange. The practices documented reflect a historical exchange between different cultural elements like Taoism, Buddhism, and local traditions, showcasing how medicine in China was often a melting pot of various influences. Policy and public health. Rural health. Understanding historical folk practices can inform policies aimed at rural or underserved areas where access to modern healthcare might still be limited. It could encourage a revival or adaptation of some of these practices where they remain culturally resonant or efficacious. Public health perception. The manuscripts can change how public health officials perceive traditional practices, potentially leading to a more inclusive approach in health planning that respects and integrates local health practices. Scholarly engagement. Further research. There's a clear call for more in-depth research into specific areas like the pharmacology of local substances used in treatments, the sociological impact of itinerant healers and their practices, the evolution of surgical techniques in folk settings, the role of women in folk medicine, particularly in childbirth and abortion. Global comparison. These manuscripts could be compared with similar folk practices from other cultures to understand universal aspects of human healing traditions, or to highlight unique Chinese contributions to global medical practices. Preservation and accessibility. Digital archives. Making these manuscripts available through digital archives would not only preserve them, but also democratize access to this knowledge, allowing for global scholarship and potentially even public education on traditional health practices. Translation and commentary. Translating these texts into modern languages with scholarly commentary could bridge the gap between ancient practices and contemporary understanding, making these resources valuable for both academic and practical purposes. Ethical considerations. Cultural sensitivity. Any modern application or study of these practices must be approached with cultural sensitivity, respecting the origins and traditional contexts of these methods. Safety and efficacy. While exploring these practices, ensuring they meet modern standards of safety and efficacy is crucial, especially when considering their integration into healthcare systems. In sum, the Berlin manuscripts are not just historical documents, but living testimonies of a medical tradition that was, and to some extent still is, an integral part of everyday life in China. They serve as a bridge between past and present, offering pathways for cultural preservation, medical innovation, and a deeper understanding of human health from a historical and anthropological perspective. Ayurvedic medicine, an ancient Indian system of healing, has seen a significant integration into modern healthcare systems, both within India and globally. Here's an overview based on the current context, principles and practices. Holistic approach. Ayurveda emphasizes the balance of body, mind, and spirit, using natural remedies, diet, yoga, and lifestyle changes to promote health and prevent disease. Dosha system. Treatment is tailored to individual constitutions, doshas, which are classified as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. influencing the type of therapies, herbs, and diet prescribed. Therapies. Common practices include panchakam, detoxification, herbal medicine, dietary adjustments, meditation, yoga, and massage, which aim to restore doshic balance. Integration into modern healthcare. Government initiatives in India, National Ayush Mission. This initiative integrates Ayurveda into the public health system, making it accessible at various healthcare levels. Ayush visas facilitates medical tourism for Ayurvedic treatments, showing governmental support for blending traditional practices with tourism. Educational and professional integration. Formal education. In India, Ayurveda is taught in universities, leading to qualifications like BAMS, Bachelor of Ayurvedic Medicine and Surgery, which is recognized for practicing medicine. Certification and regulation. Efforts are made to standardize practices, though outside India, such as in the US, there's no national standard for certification. Research and clinical trials, scientific validation. There's a growing body of research aiming to validate Ayurvedic treatments through modern scientific methods, although rigorous clinical trials are still limited. Workshops and conferences. Events focus on integrating Ayurveda into the International Classification of Diseases, ICD terminology, suggesting a move towards global recognition. Complementary medicine, integration with Western medicine. Ayurveda is often used alongside conventional treatments for conditions like arthritis, stress, and chronic diseases, offering a complementary approach. Public health. There's an increasing acknowledgement of Ayurveda's role in preventive healthcare, stress management, and lifestyle diseases. Global spread and adaptation, international interest. Countries like the US and parts of Europe are seeing an increase in Ayurvedic practices, with integrative medicine specialists incorporating it into their practices. Cultural adaptation. Practices are adapted to suit different cultural contexts while maintaining core principles like dietary recommendations based on doshas. Safety and regulation, heavy metal. Concerns. There have been warnings about the presence of toxic metals in some Ayurvedic products, leading to regulatory actions to ensure safety. Quality control. There's a need for better quality control and standardization of Ayurvedic medicines to prevent contamination and ensure efficacy. Challenges, scientific evidence. The lack of extensive, well-designed clinical trials makes it challenging to gain widespread scientific acceptance outside traditional contexts. Safety. Ensuring the safety of herbal formulations, particularly regarding contamination, remains a priority. Cultural misunderstanding. Misinterpretation or oversimplification of complex Ayurvedic concepts can lead to improper application. Future directions research. More rigorous, standardized research is needed to bridge the gap between traditional claims and modern medical standards. Global standards. Development of international standards for training, practice, and product quality could facilitate broader acceptance. Education. Enhancing educational programs to include both traditional knowledge and modern scientific understanding could produce practitioners adept at integrating both systems. In summary, Ayurvedic medicine is increasingly integrated into modern healthcare, especially in India, but also globally as part of the movement towards integrative and holistic health approaches. However, this integration requires ongoing efforts in research, education, and regulation to ensure that Ayurveda can be practiced safely and effectively alongside conventional medicine. Homeopathy, a system of alternative medicine developed in the late 18th century by Samuel Hahnemann, has had a complex relationship with modern healthcare systems. Here's an overview based on the current context. Core principles of homeopathy, like cures, like similia similibus curantur. A substance that causes symptoms in a healthy person can cure similar symptoms in someone who is ill. Law of minimum dose. The more a substance is diluted, the more potent it becomes, with remedies often diluted to the point where no molecules of the original substance might remain. Individualized treatment. Treatments are tailored to the individual's specific symptom profile rather than the disease alone. Integration into modern healthcare. Regulatory and policy frameworks. Regulation. In some countries like the UK, homeopathy is regulated, with practitioners needing to register with bodies like the Society of Homeopaths, though there's no legal regulation for all practitioners. Funding. In many places, public funding for homeopathy has been reduced or eliminated due to lack of evidence, as seen with NHS England's decision to stop funding homeopathic treatments. Public use and perception popularity. Despite skepticism from the scientific community, homeopathy has a significant user base, with millions using it worldwide for various ailments. Consumer demand. Its integration is often driven by consumer demand for natural or alternative treatments, though this is met with mixed reception due to efficacy debates. Research and evidence, scientific scrutiny. Numerous systematic reviews and meta-analyses have concluded that homeopathy is no more effective than placebo for treating health conditions, raising questions about its place in evidence-based medicine. Ongoing studies. Despite this, some research continues, focusing on areas where homeopathy might show effects beyond placebo, though these are often of low quality or inconclusive. Clinical and institutional integration, hospitals and clinics. In countries like India, homeopathy is integrated into the public health system, with hospitals dedicated to homeopathic practice. Complementary use. In many places, homeopathy is used alongside conventional treatments, especially for chronic or lifestyle diseases where patients seek additional forms of relief. Education and training, formal education. Schools like Helios Homeopathy offer training indicating an educational infrastructure for practitioners. Professional bodies. Organizations like the National Center for Homeopathy in the US provide resources and advocacy for homeopathy. Global perspectives. Acceptance. Acceptance varies widely. In Europe, some countries have well-established homeopathic communities, while in the US, there's a more skeptical view from the medical establishment. Cultural and political influence. Homeopathy's integration sometimes reflects cultural preferences for natural medicine or political decisions, rather than solely scientific endorsement. Challenges and criticisms. Lack of scientific backing. The primary criticism is the lack of robust scientific evidence supporting homeopathy's efficacy beyond placebo effects. Safety and efficacy. While often considered safe due to high dilution, there have been concerns about product safety, leading to recalls due to contamination or incorrect potency. Placebo debate. Much of the perceived benefit is attributed to the placebo effect or the therapeutic relationship with the practitioner. Future directions. Research. More rigorous, high-quality research is needed to either validate or refute homeopathic practices scientifically. Regulation. Enhanced regulation for product quality and practitioner standards could help in maintaining safety where homeopathy is practiced. Education. Educating both practitioners and the public on the limitations and potential of homeopathy could lead to more informed use and integration. Homeopathy's integration into modern healthcare thus remains contentious, with its practice often driven by patient demand rather than scientific consensus. Despite this, it continues to have a place in complementary and alternative medicine discussions globally. Naturopathy, or naturopathic medicine, is a system of alternative medicine that emphasizes the body's ability to heal itself through natural therapies. Here's an overview of its integration into modern healthcare based on current contexts. Core principles of naturopathy: do no harm. Naturopathic treatments aim to be non-invasive and use natural substances. The healing power of nature, believing in the body's inherent ability to heal itself when given the right conditions. Treat the whole person, addressing physical, emotional, dietary, environmental, and lifestyle factors. Identify and treat the cause, focusing on underlying causes rather than just symptoms. Doctor as teacher, educating patients to take responsibility for their own health. Prevention, emphasizing disease prevention through healthy living. Integration into modern healthcare, education and licensing. Accredited programs, naturopathic doctors, NDs, in the US typically graduate from accredited 4-year naturopathic medical schools. Licensing is required in some states, while others have varying regulations or none at all. Continuing education, NDs are expected to engage in ongoing professional development similar to other healthcare providers. Clinical practice, primary care role. In regions where licensed, NDs can serve as primary care providers, offering treatments ranging from nutrition and lifestyle counseling to homeopathy and botanical medicine. Integrative practices. Many NDs work in integrative settings alongside conventional doctors, providing a holistic approach where patients might seek both traditional and naturopathic treatments. Research and evidence. Evidence base. There's a growing body of research on naturopathic treatments, though much of it is criticized for lacking the rigor of conventional medical research. Some studies show benefits in areas like managing chronic conditions or supporting conventional treatments. Clinical trials. Efforts are being made to conduct more rigorous clinical research to validate naturopathic practices, but this is an area where naturopathy often faces scrutiny. Regulatory framework, licensing differences. The regulatory landscape for naturopathy varies by country and state. In the US, it's licensed in about 23 states, which allows NDs to do more than in states where it's not recognized. Scope of practice. Where licensed NDs can prescribe certain medications, perform minor surgeries, and provide comprehensive primary care, though their scope is generally narrower than that of MDs. Public perception and use, patient demand. There's a segment of the population that actively seeks naturopathic care, particularly for chronic conditions, preventive health, or when conventional medicine hasn't met their needs. Media and advocacy. Advocacy groups and media often highlight the holistic, patient-centered approach of naturopathy, increasing its visibility and acceptance. Challenges and criticisms, scientific scrutiny. Naturopathy faces criticism for its reliance on practices with limited scientific backing, particularly regarding homeopathy or certain nutritional therapies. Regulatory disparity. The inconsistent regulation across different regions can lead to disparities in practice standards and patient safety. Future directions. Integration with conventional medicine. There's a push for more integrative models where naturopathic and conventional medicine work symbiotically, especially in areas like chronic disease management, wellness, and preventive care. Research. Continued investment in research to substantiate or refute naturopathic treatments could lead to broader acceptance and integration into health systems. Education, enhancing educational standards and public understanding to clarify what naturopathy can offer within the spectrum of healthcare choices. Naturopathy's integration into modern healthcare is thus characterized by a blend of acceptance and skepticism. Its future likely depends on the ability to align with evidence-based practices while maintaining its core principles of natural healing and holistic care. The gut-brain connection, also known as the gut-brain axis, is a bidirectional communication network linking the central nervous system, CNS, with the enteric nervous system, ENS, of the gastrointestinal tract. Here's an overview based on current understandings and research. Core concepts of the gut-brain connection: neurotransmitters. The gut produces neurotransmitters like serotonin, most of the body's serotonin is found in the gut, and dopamine, which are crucial for mood regulation, thus directly linking gut health to mental health. Microbiome influence. The gut microbiota influences this axis by producing metabolites, neuroactive substances, and by impacting immune responses, which in turn can affect brain function and behavior. Vagus nerve acts as a primary communication pathway between the gut and brain, transmitting information in both directions. Hormones. Gut hormones like ghrelin and leptin communicate hunger and satiety signals to the brain, affecting eating behaviors and emotional responses. Stress response. Stress can alter gut motility and permeability, while gut health issues can exacerbate stress and anxiety, demonstrating a feedback loop. Research and implications. Mental health, depression, and anxiety. Studies show a correlation between gut health and mood disorders. Interventions aimed at the gut microbiome, like probiotics, have shown potential in alleviating symptoms of depression and anxiety. Autism spectrum disorders. There's emerging evidence suggesting that gut microbiome alterations might be linked to behaviors in autism. Neurodegenerative diseases. Parkinson's disease. Research indicates that gut health might play a role in the development or progression of Parkinson's, with some studies exploring the gut as a potential starting point for the disease. Alzheimer's disease. There's interest in how gut dysbiosis might influence brain health, potentially contributing to Alzheimer's pathology. Eating disorders. Anorexia and bulimia. The gut-brain axis is implicated in the dysregulation of appetite and satiety signals, which can perpetuate eating disorders. Functional gastrointestinal disorders, IBS, and functional dyspepsia. These conditions are often associated with psychological symptoms, suggesting a strong gut-brain link. Treatments might include psychological interventions alongside gut-focused therapies. Therapeutic approaches, probiotics and prebiotics, increasingly used to modulate the gut microbiome with benefits for both gut and mental health. Dietary interventions. Diets like the Mediterranean or ketogenic can influence gut microbiota, potentially impacting brain function. Psychobiotics, a term for interventions that can positively affect mental health through the gut, including certain strains of bacteria or dietary components. Clinical and research challenges. Complexity. The gut-brain axis involves many variables, making it challenging to establish clear cause and effect relationships. Individual variability. The microbiome varies widely between individuals, affecting how dietary or microbial interventions work. Future directions. Personalized medicine. Tailoring interventions based on individual microbiomes could enhance treatment efficacy for both gut and brain-related conditions. Broader research. Continued research into how specific microbial communities or dietary patterns influence mental health and vice versa. Holistic treatment models, integrating gut health into mental health care plans, possibly leading to new therapeutic strategies for psychological and gastrointestinal disorders. The gut-brain connection is a burgeoning field in medicine that underscores the importance of considering both systems in health and disease management, potentially revolutionizing how we approach treatment for a wide array of conditions. The Quran is considered by Muslims to provide spiritual, moral, and sometimes physical guidance, including aspects related to health and medicine. Here is an overview of how medicine and health are addressed in the Quran through specific verses, ayat, based on the provided search results. Healing, verses in the Quran, ayat ash-shifa, Quranic verses of healing, Quran 9:14, and God shall heal the breast of the believers. Quran 10:57. Mankind, there has come to you a guidance from your Lord and a healing for the diseases in your hearts, and for those who believe a guidance and a mercy. Quran 16:69. There issues from within the bodies of the bee a drink of varying colors wherein is healing for mankind, referring to honey. Quran 17:82. And we sent down in the Quran such things that have healing and mercy for the believers. Quran 26:80. And when I am ill, it is God who cures me. Part of Prophet Abraham's supplication. Quran 41:44. And declare, O Muhammad, that the Quran is a guidance and healing for the believers. Medicinal references. Honey, mentioned explicitly in the Quran as having healing properties. Quran 16:69. It's noted for its antibacterial properties, which have been scientifically recognized today. Olive, referred to in Surah An-Nur 24:35, implying its benefits, which modern science supports in terms of health benefits like cancer prevention and cholesterol reduction. Ginger, mentioned in Surah Al-Insan 76:17, for its medicinal qualities, particularly in treating respiratory issues, spiritual and physical healing. The Quran is described not only as a source of spiritual healing, but also as having implications for physical health. It's believed that reciting certain verses or listening to the Quran can provide comfort, reduce stress, and promote healing. Surah Al-Fatiha is considered a spiritual cure, often used for various ailments due to its invocation of God's guidance and mercy. Ayat al-Kursi, Quran 2:255, is recited for protection and healing, believed to ward off negative energies and provide spiritual strength. Prophetic medicine. Beyond the Quran, the Hadith, sayings and practices of Muhammad, also discuss medicinal practices known as prophetic medicine. This includes advice on using natural substances like honey, black seed, Nigella sativa, and cupping for health maintenance and treatment. Health guidelines. The Quran encourages a balanced lifestyle, cleanliness, and the avoidance of harmful substances like alcohol, which indirectly promotes health. There's an emphasis on diet hygiene and the importance of seeking medical treatment, recognizing that disease and its cure come from God. Interpretation and practice. While the Quran is not a medical textbook, its verses are interpreted by scholars and believers to provide guidance on health practices. The spiritual aspect of healing is emphasized, suggesting that faith and prayer are integral to the healing process, alongside seeking medical treatment. In summary, while the Quran does not provide a systematic guide to medicine in the modern sense, it contains verses that Muslims interpret as advocating for holistic health, the use of natural remedies, and the integration of spiritual practices like prayer and recitation for healing. The mention of specific substances like honey and olives underscores the belief in natural remedies, which aligns with the broader Islamic view of health as a balance of physical, spiritual, and communal well-being. Prophetic medicine, or al-Tib al-Nabawi in Arabic, refers to the health-related guidance derived from the sayings and practices of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as recorded in the Hadith literature. Here's an overview based on the search results. Foundations of prophetic medicine. Source based on the Hadith, which are narrations of the Prophet's sayings, actions, and approvals alongside Quranic verses that discuss health and healing. Philosophy emphasizes prevention, natural remedies, spiritual healing, and holistic health, integrating faith and practical health advice. Key practices and recommendations. Natural remedies. Honey, widely recommended for its healing properties. The Prophet said there is healing in black seed for all diseases except death. But also healing is in three things: cupping, a gulp of honey, or cauterization. Black seed, Nigella sativa, often cited for its broad medicinal uses, with the Prophet stating it contains a cure for every disease except death. Dates, especially ajwa dates, recommended for their health benefits, including detoxification and protection from poison or magic. Therapeutic techniques. Cupping, hijama, advised for detoxification and blood purification, described as beneficial by the Prophet. Bloodletting, another form of treatment, though less commonly practiced today. Diet and lifestyle, moderation in eating. The Prophet advised against overeating, promoting health through dietary moderation. Hygiene, emphasis on cleanliness, both bodily and environmental, to prevent diseases. Spiritual practices, prayer and supplication. Many hadiths link spiritual practices to physical health, suggesting that faith can aid healing. Recitation of Quran. Specific verses like Ayat al-Kursi or Surah al-Fatiha are believed to have healing powers. Modern integration and studies. Scientific validation. There's ongoing research into the medicinal properties of substances like black seed and honey, with some studies supporting traditional uses with modern scientific methods. Health and wellness programs. Programs like those offered by Ayman Attar focus on integrating prophetic medicine into contemporary lifestyle for preventive and holistic healthcare. Education and advocacy. There are efforts to educate Muslims and non-Muslims about prophetic medicine through books, courses, and conferences, with events like the 6th International Conference on Prophetic Medicine highlighting its relevance. Challenges and considerations. Lack of scientific rigor. While some practices align with modern medical knowledge, others are based on faith or historical context, lacking rigorous scientific validation. Cultural and religious interpretation. The application of prophetic medicine can vary widely based on cultural interpretations and the extent to which it's integrated with or seen as separate from contemporary medicine. Public health. There's a balance to strike between promoting traditional practices and ensuring they are safe, effective, and complementary to modern treatments when necessary. Conclusion: prophetic medicine represents an ancient form of holistic health guidance that intertwines spiritual faith with practical health advice. It continues to be studied and practiced, offering a unique perspective on health that blends religious belief with natural remedies. However, its integration into modern healthcare requires careful consideration of both its traditional value and scientific scrutiny. Islamic dietary laws, known as halal, permissible, and haram, forbidden, guide Muslims in what they can eat and drink. These laws are derived from the Quran and the Hadith, and they encompass not only what foods are permissible, but also how food should be prepared and consumed. Here's an overview based on the search results. Fundamental principles. Halal, permissible. Meat. Animals must be slaughtered in a specific way known as dabiha, which involves cutting the jugular vein, carotid artery, and windpipe while invoking the name of Allah. This applies to cattle, sheep, goats, poultry, and camels. Fish and seafood. Generally considered halal if they have scales and live in water, both fresh and salt, although there's some debate regarding shellfish. Vegetables, fruits, grains. These are halal unless contaminated with something forbidden. Dairy products, halal if derived from halal animals with no haram substances added. Haram, forbidden. Pork. All forms of pork and its byproducts are strictly forbidden. Alcohol. Consumption of alcohol is haram, including in food preparation, though some scholars allow for its use if all alcohol is evaporated during cooking. Carrion. Meat from animals that have died by means other than proper slaughter is not permissible. Blood. Consuming blood is forbidden. Animals not slaughtered correctly. Meat from animals not slaughtered according to Islamic rites is haram. Certain carnivorous animals, predatory animals with fangs like lions or tigers, are generally not halal. Birds of prey, birds like eagles or falcons, are not allowed. Additional dietary laws: intoxicants. Besides alcohol, other intoxicating substances are also forbidden. Gelatin must come from halal sources. Often gelatin from non-halal animals or from pig skin is haram. Cheese and dairy must not contain animal rennet from non-halal animals or alcohol-based ingredients. Ethical and health considerations. Animal welfare. The method of slaughter is intended to minimize pain, reflecting Islamic teachings on compassion and the sanctity of life. Health. The prohibition of certain foods is sometimes interpreted as having health benefits, like avoiding the risks associated with pork consumption in certain environments or excessive alcohol intake. Practical application certification. Many products now carry halal certification to assure consumers that the product meets Islamic dietary standards. Dining out. Muslims often seek halal restaurants or check if non-halal establishments offer halal options. Cross-contamination. There's concern about cross-contamination where halal foods come into contact with haram substances, leading to strict practices in food preparation areas. Cultural and regional variations. Interpretation. There might be regional or scholarly differences in what is considered permissible, like the consumption of certain types of seafood or the use of alcohol in cooking. Special occasions. Dietary laws are observed even during celebrations, with specific halal dishes prepared for events like Eid. Modern challenges. Globalization. With international trade, ensuring halal compliance can be more complex, leading to the establishment of halal certification bodies worldwide. Processed foods. The ingredients in processed foods can make it challenging to determine if they are halal, hence the reliance on certification. Islamic dietary laws are not just about what one can or cannot eat, but also reflect a lifestyle that integrates faith, health, ethics, and community into daily life. They serve to remind Muslims of their spiritual commitments while navigating modern food systems. The halal certification process involves a series of steps to ensure that products, particularly food, meet Islamic dietary laws. Here's an overview based on the search results provided. General process overview. Application and initial contact. Companies interested in halal certification contact a halal certification body. They fill out an application form detailing their business, products, manufacturing processes, and ingredients. Documentation and review. The company submits detailed documentation, including product lists, ingredient specifications, and process flow diagrams. This is reviewed to assess if the products can be halal certified. Audit preparation. After initial document review, a halal agreement is prepared, which includes confidentiality agreements and cost structures. The company must implement a Halal Product Assurance System, HPAS, to maintain halal integrity. Facility audit. An on-site audit is conducted to inspect the production facility. This includes checking raw materials, production procedures, cleaning protocols, and storage practices. Audits are often conducted in stages, with a focus on ensuring no cross-contamination with non-halal products occurs. Certification. Decision. After the audit, if all requirements are met, a halal certificate is issued by the certification body. This certificate typically lasts for 1 to 3 years, requiring periodic reviews or audits to maintain certification. Surveillance and renewal. Certified companies undergo regular surveillance audits to ensure ongoing compliance with halal standards. Upon the expiration of the certificate, a renewal process, including another audit, might be necessary. Training and compliance. Staff training is often part of the process, ensuring that all personnel understand halal requirements. This might include cultural sensitivity training. Specific considerations. Ingredients. All ingredients must be halal, and any changes need pre-approval from the certification body. This includes verifying that no haram, forbidden substances are used. Cross-contamination. Facilities must have measures in place to prevent halal products from being contaminated by non-halal items, including strict cleaning procedures. Slaughter process. For meat products, the slaughtering process must adhere to Islamic law, ensuring animals are alive and healthy at the time of slaughter, and the process includes the recitation of a blessing. Global standards. Different countries or regions might have their own standards or accreditation requirements for halal certification, which can complicate international trade. Types of products. Halal certification isn't limited to food. It can also apply to cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and even services like catering. Certification bodies. Various organizations offer halal certification services, like the American Halal Foundation, Halal Certification Services, and others in different countries, each with their process nuances, but generally following similar steps. Challenges and criticisms. Cost and complexity. There's a cost associated with certification, which can be a barrier for some companies, and the process can be complex, requiring significant changes to production practices. Transparency and trust. There's sometimes skepticism about the transparency or reliability of some certifiers, leading to calls for standardization and regulation. Conclusion: halal certification is a comprehensive process aimed at ensuring consumer trust in products' compliance with Islamic dietary laws. It involves not just the examination of ingredients, but a thorough review of the entire production process to maintain halal integrity. The halal slaughter process involves specific rituals and procedures to ensure that the meat is permissible according to Islamic law. Here's a detailed look based on the provided search results. General principles of halal slaughter: animal welfare and health. The animal must be alive and healthy at the time of slaughter. It should not be forced or subjected to undue stress. Slaughterman qualifications. The person performing the slaughter must be a Muslim, or in some interpretations, a member of the people of the book, Jews or Christians who are knowledgeable in the halal slaughtering process. Invocation of Allah's name. The name of Allah must be invoked at the moment of slaughter, typically by saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar, in the name of Allah. Allah is the greatest, ensuring the act is done in the name of God. Method of slaughter. Cutting technique. A swift, deep incision is made with a sharp knife to cut the trachea, esophagus, carotid arteries, and jugular veins, but not the spinal cord, allowing for rapid and complete blood drainage. Single stroke. The cut should be made in one swift stroke without lifting the knife. Bleeding out. The animal should be allowed to bleed out completely, as blood is considered haram, forbidden. This process is believed to ensure the meat is free from impurities. No stunning in traditional practice. Traditionally, halal slaughter does not involve stunning before cutting. However, modern halal practices often incorporate reversible, non-lethal stunning methods that comply with halal requirements. Thus, modern adaptations and variations. Stunning, reversible stunning. Some halal certifications allow for stunning methods like low-voltage electrical stunning for poultry or head, only electrical stunning for cattle, where the animal remains alive and can be bled out while still unconscious. Controversy. There's debate over stunning. Some scholars argue it's permissible if it does not kill the animal before the cut, while others oppose it for not adhering strictly to traditional practices. Mechanical slaughter. In large-scale operations, mechanical slaughter machines might be used, but there's contention about whether this adheres to halal principles, particularly regarding the invocation of Allah's name for each animal. Regional differences. Practices can vary by country or even by certifying body, reflecting different interpretations of halal requirements. Animal handling and post-slaughter. Restraint. Animals should be restrained in a manner that does not cause unnecessary pain or stress. For larger animals, this might involve using a box or similar device to hold the animal securely in place. Post-slaughter handling. After bleeding, the animal must be confirmed dead before any further processing like skinning or dressing can begin. Cleanliness. The area, tools, and process must maintain high cleanliness standards to avoid contamination with non-halal substances. Certification and monitoring. Halal certification. Facilities must often be inspected and certified by a halal authority, which includes ongoing monitoring to ensure compliance with halal standards. Regular inspections. Halal certifying bodies conduct regular audits to verify that the slaughter process continues to meet halal requirements. Challenges and criticisms. Animal welfare. Critics argue that non-stun slaughter can cause unnecessary suffering, although proponents assert that done correctly it's humane. Economic and regulatory issues. The process can be more labor-intensive and costly, leading to debates on costs, regulations, and the practicality for large-scale meat production. In summary, halal slaughter is a ritualistic process deeply rooted in Islamic law, aiming for both spiritual purity and humane treatment of animals, though interpretations and practices can vary significantly. Folk medicine of the Qing and Republican periods. A review of therapies in Unschuld's Berlin Manuscripts Introduction 1. Healing in China has always encompassed many more thoughts and practices than those transmitted in the printed literature of literati medical traditions. Medical manuscripts offer a unique view into the fluid boundaries between various styles of practice and types of medical practitioners, otherwise obscured by the received tradition. More than 40 years ago, Paul and Ulrike Unschuld began to collect medical manuscripts from local markets in China. Preserved now in the Berlin State Library and the Ethnological Museum, this collection encompasses 1,000 handwritten texts, the majority of which date to the 19th and early 20th centuries. These common writings by no-name authors are of immeasurable value for the historian interested in medicine of late imperial and early republican China. Apart from containing abundant material for literary, linguistic, and socio-historical studies, they reveal dimensions of medical practice that have so far only rarely received scholarly attention. The main part of this chapter is a review of the various therapies described in the manuscripts. I start by providing a summary of groups of authors and their purposes, and a definition of what folk medicine consisted of at the time. The review itself is largely based on Paul Unschuld and Zheng Jinsheng's catalogue, Unschuld and Zheng, 2012, which serves as a starting point for any research on the collection's material. This I have supplemented with my own FNDings from MS 8051, the collected notes on medical recipes, Yifang Jichao Yifang Jichao, by the 19th century Guangdong physician Tang Tingguang and his successors. 3 readers interested in particular therapies will FND references to exemplary manuscripts and selected secondary literature consisting of historical studies, anthropological works, or books on practical application. After all, similar forms of therapy are applied in China and Taiwan even today. 4. Apart from Unschuld and Zheng, few people have yet published any research on the collection. Bian has used a text by a wholesale medicinal merchant, MS 8808, in an analysis of late imperial interregional drug trade and questions of authenticity, Bian 2014, 212-9, and Andrew Schoenbaum has examined various manuscripts as places of intersection of medicine and vernacular literature, Schoenbaum 2016. Other scholars have meticulously studied older manuscripts, and a comparison with the texts discussed in their works might well shed some light on the history of the therapies presented in the Berlin collection. Taking us right back to the 3rd and 2nd centuries BCE is Donald Harper's translation of the medical texts of Mawangdui, Harper 1998. Vivian Lowe and Christopher Cullen have edited 16 essays on the Dunhuang medical manuscripts, Lowe and Cullen, 2005, and more information on the same text corpus is provided in Catherine Despeur's volumes, Despeur 2010a. The scarcity of secondary literature on folk medicine in late imperial China is perhaps due to the lack of primary medical sources. There are some, however, household almanacs constitute a window to domestic healthcare. There are apotropaic manuals, texts written or inspired by itinerant healers, recipe books by hereditary doctors and amateurs, or materia medica like the Systematic Materia Medica, Benkao Gangmu, of Li Shizhen Li Shizhen, 1593, that integrate many elements of folk medicine. 5. A few scholars have directed their focus away from the field of late imperial literati medicine. Yili Wu's studies on popular gynecology and traumatology touch upon CER, aspects of what one might consider folk medicine, Wu 2000, 2015, 2017. Linda Barnes and T.J. Hinrichs have edited a comprehensive overview of the history of medicine in China, which does not hesitate to affirm folk practices as an integral part of public health care, Hinrichs and Barnes 2013. Their volume provides brief essays, including BIB biographical information on various topics discussed in this chapter. Other authors have investigated the world of medicine and healing encountered in non-medical sources such as late imperial fiction, Cullen 1993, Schoenbaum 2016, Berg 2000-2001, or legal case studies, Unschuld 1977, Summer 2010. Healing practices, not unlike those encountered in the manuscripts, were also served by anthropologists in modern Taiwan and China. Kleinman et al. 1975. Kleinman 1980, Zheng 1989, only a few decades later. As for practical application, several Chinese monographs and journal articles discuss contemporary folk therapies, mostly those of ethnic minorities, but unfortunately simply list treatment methods and indications without providing any background information whatsoever. Liu and Liu, 1992a, Wang, 1998-2000. Folk medicine and its practitioners. The authors and their purposes, 6 printed medical texts, even case studies, were to at least some extent intended to establish medical and scholarly authority, and therefore cannot be assumed to represent unadorned medical reality. In comparison, most authors of the Berlin manuscripts only put down in writing what they considered useful for practical application. High expenses for medicines or limited access to physicians and pharmacies made laypersons record affordable treatment methods they considered effective. Medical experts transmitted and safeguarded knowledge within their group by compiling secret manuscripts. This established a sense of group identity, ensured exclusivity and economic benefit, while less honorably, secrecy also prevented deceptive methods from being leaked to outsiders. Finally, some authors copied excerpts from printed texts for personal use, and a few apparently planned to publish their own writings. Always keeping the great diversity of actors in the medical marketplace in mind, the authors of the Berlin collection can roughly be divided into the following groups. 1. Non-medical authors collected pharmaceutical and dietary recipes, acumoxotherapies or apotropaic techniques, for their own personal use at home. Their manuscripts follow no systematic order, and recipes are simple and include many substances of rural or local origin rarely found in conventional recipe literature. 2 folk healers' manuscripts list the same therapies as those of lay authors, but also include heterodox practices and specialist knowledge on external medicine, pediatrics, gynecology, and abortion. In comparison to regular physicians' writings, these manuscripts are characterized by the relative absence of theoretical reasoning or by ideas differing from regular medical theory. Many texts, Unschuld and Zheng, attribute to folk healers, however, reveal that the authors had undergone professional training to varying extents, were at least somewhat familiar with regular medical theory and printed texts, and practiced medicine for a living. 7.3. This makes them comparable to regular physicians who had received literary and professional medical training of some sort. 8 physicians' manuscripts were for the most part based on excerpts from printed medical books or consisted of their own writings intended for publishing. We FN'd comments on recipes, case studies reflecting personal experience, theoretical elaboration, and clinical specialization. However, even the medicine of well-educated scholar physicians was not free of folk influences. Others have already noted the inclusion of popular knowledge into literati medicine, Scheid 2005-97, and the manuscripts provide ample proof that the boundaries between folk and literati medicine were indistinct at best. MS 8051 is just one example of a text that lists complex recipes from printed literature side by side with recipes containing local herbs or single-ingredient recipes with bloodletting and wick cauterization or ritual instructions for the preparation of medicinals. 4 itinerant healers' manuscripts contained rhetorical and practical tricks to attract customers and make maximum profit in addition to various therapies. While their theoretical ideas, though scanty and simplified, were sometimes based on regular medical theory, itinerant healers' therapeutic interventions differed considerably from literati medicine. According to the refined therapies of itinerant physicians, Chuanya of Zhao Xuemin c. 1720-1805, itinerant healers possessed skills in acupuncture and massage. They were specialists at pulling teeth, dabbing medicinals onto macules, removing eye shades and grasping worms, and performed apotropaic rituals. Chuanya prefaces 9-10-13. Because therapies were required to be cheap, effective, and convenient, they consisted mostly of cure-all plaster remedies and pharmaceutical recipes made from few or even single ingredients. 9.5. Although we FND apotropaic therapies scattered throughout the collection, A number of texts solely devoted to divination and magical healing suggest that these were written by magico-religious healers who specialized in some form of prognostics and ritual therapy. Their methods were manifold and reflect the potpourri of hemerological, Taoist, Buddhist, and local cultic beliefs that characterizes religion in China. 6 practitioners of martial arts naturally took a special interest in healing injuries. Manuscripts of such authors are mainly concerned with traumatology and include diagnostic and prognostic procedures, pharmaceutical recipes, and descriptions of bone-setting techniques. These were often based on physiological ideas differing from those of orthodox medicine. 7 pharmacists constitute another important group of authors. Their manuscripts were medication lists for commercial purposes and not intended to record actual therapies. Therefore, they will not be discussed here. Folk medicine in the manuscripts. Folk medicine was therapeutic practice for everybody, no matter where a person lived or to which social stratum he or she belonged. Anderson and Anderson used the term folk to refer to the behavior of ordinary community member, the man in the street, as opposed to the medical experts, who are carriers of a classical or great tradition or some similar body of highly specialized law. Anderson and Anderson, 1975, 143. However, healthcare in China encompassed multiple layers of therapeutic action and expertise in the field, expanding from the ordinary community member to the carriers of a classical or great tradition. Common people applied simple home remedies. Literati amateurs prescribed elaborate medical recipes. A sick person's family could employ the services of elite scholar physicians, hereditary physicians, monks, shamans, bone setters, wound doctors, female healers, itinerant drug peddlers, acupuncturists, or massage therapists. Healers from the lower echelons of society crossed the bound areas in between these groups by acquiring knowledge and gaining fame as specialists in their field of expertise. Knowledge and practices traveled by personal and literary exchange from one sphere of healing to another. This fluidity is reflected in the Berlin manuscripts and reveals that even the division of what was called Chinese folk medicine by anthropologists of the 1970s to 1980s into a sacred and secular sector is tenuous. Ahern, 1975, Kleinman, 1980, 63, 5.10, reviewing the manuscripts, one FNDs not only that most authors, regardless of their literary or social origin, did not limit themselves to one type of therapy, but also that the secular and sacred spheres were not as far apart as Kleinman observed decades later. Pharmaceutical texts included acumoxa, or scraping techniques, texts on traumatology, or pediatrics, listed pharmaceutical recipes side by side with manual methods or lampwick cauterization. Manuscripts otherwise devoted entirely to pharmaceutical recipes contained apotropaic therapies, and apotropaic manuscripts listed herbal formulae. Nevertheless, in all this hodgepodge, we need to make an assessment as to the gradual differences that qualify certain manuscripts as more on the folk side in comparison to those that are representative of classical literati medicine. I propose the following criteria. 1. The level of literary education of the author and the amount of material copied from printed works. 2. The proportion of simple, cheap recipes to complex medical recipes from printed texts and the theoretical reasoning associated with these. 3. The proportion of substances of domestic, local or rural origin to substances available on the urban trans-regional drug market. 4. The proportion of sacred medicine, heterodox practices and surgical and manual techniques to secular medicine and orthodox pharmacology. For this review, I will focus on manuscripts characterized by a relatively low level of literary education of the authors, by an emphasis on simple and cheap recipes, pharmaceutical substances of local or rural origin, magico-religious or heterodox practices, and on surgical or manual techniques. This does not exclude specialist knowledge on certain fields of expertise, such as traumatology or pediatrics. However, while classical medicine was mostly employed by the urban literate elite, the therapies preserved in these texts were available to the man in the street as well. Therapies, pharmacotherapy, pharmaceutical substances, regional plant and animal products fitted the easy-to-obtain requirement of common healers. This included victuals such as vegetables, grains, fruit or meats, but also non-edible indigenous plants. Provided that a manuscript can be pinpointed to one locality, an identification of the medicinal plants used there appears a fascinating field of research. 11 Non-herbal substances included objects from everyday life such as chopsticks, coins, MS 8121, or needle shards, MS 8051, and the various types of dust or carriage axle grease, MS 8198. And drugs of human or animal origin might be regarded with disgust by the modern observer. Traditional materia medica, such as the Benkao Gangmu, include entries on human or animal excretions, head or body grease, hair, fingernails, and the like, but the brevity with which these substances are treated indicates that they were not used widely in literati medicina. In folk medicine, however, they frequently served as medicinals in their own right, or were used for the preparation of other drugs. MS 8051 recommends the feces of boys, cattle, rats, and cats in internal or external recipes, and elsewhere we FN'd human sperm, pigeons' droppings, insect and donkey's dung, MS 8121, or even a human skull for the treatment of a wide variety of diseases. 12 External and simple recipes. Throughout the manuscripts, we FN'd advice on the external applications of medicinals. This is to be expected in the treatment of sores and traumatic injuries, but plasters and pastes applied on the navel, acupuncture points, or other parts of the body were used for the treatment of fright wind, jingfeng, cough, and other internal diseases as well. Simple recipes, applied internally or externally, consisted of a combination of a few medicinals with dirty substances or foods such as eggs or innards. Even easier to apply were single-ingredient recipes consisting of only one pharmaceutical drug or foodstuffs like salt or egg yolk. 13 Fakes and tricks pharmaceutical recipes were not only required to be simple and effective, practitioners also needed to earn their livelihood and therefore sought financial profit. For this purpose, itinerant healers relied on rhetoric, sleights of hand, and the faking of medicinals. Jung, 1996. Traditional materia medica frequently warn of fake substances and describe methods to expose them. In itinerant healers' manuscripts, we FND first-hand information recorded by the adulterators themselves. MS 8722, Mississippi 8253. However, a regular physician's practice was not free of trickery either. The authors of MS 8051 increased the value of cheap recipes by adding other substances to change their color or odor, by crushing them into a pulp or powder, or by providing well-known remedies with new FN-sounding names, Unschuld and Zheng 2012-62-4. This clearly shows that in medical practice, the ingredients and form of administration of medical recipes did not only depend on theoretical considerations and pharmaceutical effects, but served economic purposes as well. Pharmaceutical substances in magico-religious therapies. Many effects attributed to pharmaceutical drugs were derived from belief in magical correspondences, but certain substances were considered magically effective in themselves. 14 people ingested the ash of burnt amulets with medicinal decoctions, used medicinal plants for fumigation, kept or planted them in or around the house, performed ritual baths, or carried them on the body. Certain woods considered magically effective, for example peachwood, were carved into ritual devices, and rituals were performed before or during the preparation of medicinals. MS 8051. The fact that we FND these methods not only in apotropaic manuscripts but in pharmaceutical ones as well shows us that a strong connection between pharmacotherapy and ritual healing still prevailed in Qing and Republican China. Piercing, cauterization and surgery, marginalized practices, cauterization, piercing, I will use this term here to designate bloodletting and acupuncture, and the lancing of abscesses, were closely related in ancient times. Harper 1998-92-4, Lowe 2002. As theory-based pharmacology evolved, these hands-on techniques were disdained by many literati physicians. There is only a small amount of specialized Acumoxa manuscripts in the Berlin collection, most of which date from the 1920s to 1950s, this scarcity probably reflecting the marginalization of acupuncture during the Qing dynasty, Unschuld and Zheng 2012, 126. They were mostly copied from printed books and reveal only limited information on the clinical practice of Acumoxa in folk medicine. More promising in this regard seems an assessment of the few manuscripts that cannot be traced back to printed works, 8,065, and of the numerous piercing and cauterization techniques interspersed into recipe texts by practicing physicians. These, along with the striking absence of theory they reveal, might be an indicator that acumoxa was still practiced as the quick and easy healthcare Vivian Low detected in the Dunhuang Moxibustian charts, Low 2005. Piercing and cauterization in magico-religious context. Some scholars have emphasized the connection between ritual and heat therapy in ancient medicine, Harper 1998, 95-6, Yamada 1998, 67-72. Others have surveyed acumoxa in medieval religious healing, Strickman tentatively suggesting a connection between exorcistic word methods, see below, and acupuncture, Strickman 2002, 241-3-150, Stanley Baker 2013, 76-109. The Berlin collection provides valuable material for an investigation of the relationship between acumoxa and the magico-religious practices of the time. Piercing techniques are not only listed side by side with apotropaic methods, but some manuscripts combine bloodletting with pharmaceutical recipes strongly reminiscent of apotropaic formulae, MS 8178, or even integrate acupuncture into exorcistic rituals, MS 8798. Similarly, prohibitions and indications for the stimulation of anatomical locations at CER Tain times must be seen in the context of hemorrhagical calculation, magico-religious ideas, and life cultivation practices. As Vivienne Low has shown, this holds true for early and medieval China, Low 2001, and the manuscripts bear witness of the survival of such recommendations until the 20th century. Lampwick cauterization. Descriptions of cauterization with a hot cord appear in medical texts as early as the Warring States period. Harper, 1998-95. MS 8036, a manuscript devoted mostly to lampwick cauterization, Dung Huo Fa Dung Huo Fa, a therapy based on the scorching of certain points on the body with a burning lampwick or oil-soaked rush pith. 15 traces this practice back to the Yellow Theurge's inner classic, Huangdi Neijing, and laments its loss in later acupuncture literature. However, lampwick cauterization is very much present in the Berlin Collection. Several specialized manuscripts include exact descriptions and illustrations of when and where to apply such treatment in cases of smallpox or fright wind, MS 8004 Mississippi, 8102 Mississippi, 8119 Mississippi, 8494 Mississippi, 8764. Wick cauterization apparently formed an integral part of late imperial folk pediatrics, Unschuld and Zheng 2012, 111-113, but was in no ways limited to the treatment of children, as various other manuscripts show. MS 8051 proposes cauterization of red macules erupting in the course of acute enteritis, a treatment that Li Shizhen, 300 years earlier, considered significant enough to include in the Lampwick entry of the Benkao Gangmu 6, 421. Figure 18.1. Comment: this illustration from MS 8036 depicts black sand fright wind, Wusha Jing Feng Wusha Jing Feng, one of 26 conditions of fright wind, characterized by black sand-like eruptions on the entire body, blue veins on the belly, bloated abdomen, black lips and mouth, vomiting, and diarrhea. The text recommends cauterizing the area below the throat, the navel, the tiger mouth, huku points, and the blue veins above the back seam, Beifeng, points with a lamp wick. Bloodletting and minor surgery, 16 Kuriyama has emphasized the decline of bloodletting from late Han times onwards. Kuriyama 1995-15, but this view only holds true for literati medicine. Again, the Benkao Gangmu repeatedly refers to bloodletting techniques, and the Berlin manuscripts reveal that the average physician had no problem with applying such methods in medical practice. Even today, certain forms of bloodletting are still conducted in folk practice and acupuncture clinics. 17. Similarly, the lancing of abscesses, now carried out with needles and knives instead of lancing stones, though frequently disapproved of by literati authors, remained a necessary intervention in Qing medicine. Chapter 13 in this volume. Other minor surgeries included the opening of pox papules, MS 8221, the removal of arrowheads, MS 8269, the stitching up of wounds, MS 8111, and tooth extraction, MS 8166. Pharmaceutical substances were sometimes applied externally for anesthesia during such procedures. 18. The scraping method, guafa guafa, that is scraping the skin with a blunt instrument in order to break the capillaries and cause petechiae, is placed in close proximity to piercing and cauterization for the treatment of sand-like skin eruptions. Shah 19, MS 8358, Mississippi 8397. It seems that scraping was intended to cause bruising or possibly bleeding of papulus exanthema, which implies that it was considered a bloodletting technique rather than a type of massage as it is nowadays. Liu and Liu, 1992b, 12731. Bone setting and massage, bone setting, Zhenggu Zhenggu, and massage and mo from Ming times on Tuina Tuina constitute important elements of popular healthcare until today. 20 though Tuina has now been reintegrated into Chinese medical institutions, this was not always the case. The song figure 18.1. Jingzheng Huo Fire Approach to Pathoconditions of Fright, Mississippi, 8036. P15, Staatsbibliothek zu Berlin, PK. Government disbanded the Tang Massage Department, Chapter 6 in this volume. And with the rise of literati medicine and its focus on pharmaceutics, massage was increasingly marginalized. Nevertheless, it remained part of folk medicine and rose in popularity again during the Ming and Qing dynasties as a simple, cheap and safe way of treating children, possibly in place of more invasive procedures like acupuncture. All Tuina manuscripts in the collection were copied from printed texts, Unschuld and Zheng 2012, 111.3, and concern themselves almost exclusively with pediatrics. This, of course, does not mean that only children enjoyed such treatments. Influential books like The Golden Mirror of Medical Learning, Yizhong generally recommend massage for diseases of muscles, tendons, and joints, Yizhong 87.803. And at least MS 8131 indicates that the author practiced his art as an alternative to potentially dangerous pharmaceutics. Various manuscripts in the collection deal with bone setting and trauma medicine. MS 8167 includes a manual inspired by Japanese orthopedics and Western anatomy on how to reposition dislocated joints, while other manuscripts discuss traumatology in general. Alternative physiologies of channels and openings on the body through which blood was thought to flow according to a specific timetable served as a basis for diagnosis, prognosis and manual treatment. Unschuld and Zheng 2012-124. Sometimes illustrated in diagrams, MS 8111, Mississippi 8027, Mississippi 8041. These notions were derived from martial arts rather than regular medical theory. Figure 18.2. Comment: this illustration from MS 8111 shows holes, Lui Shui, on the front of the head and trunk, the injury of which can be fatal. Names and locations of these holes, such as the blood sac hole, Wenang Shui Xie Nang Shui, below the right 12th rib, are specific to trauma medicine. Figure 18.2, Michuan Dia Da Bofang, Michuan Dia Da Bafang. Secretly transmitted recipes treating injuries from knocks and falls, strung together like cymbals, Mississippi, 8111, P7. Staatsbibliothek zu Berlin, PK childbirth practices and abortion childbirth practices. The scholarly impact on women's medicine in Imperial China was less apparent in the field of hands-on obstetrics, which remained largely the responsibility of female experts. While printed gynecology books contain extensive erudite treatises on pregnancy and postpartum care, chapters on parturition are, in comparison, rather brief and permeated with folk practices. They include birthing charts, instructions on amulet application, single ingredient and apotropaic recipes, or advice on manual techniques for birth complications. 21 obstetric treatments in the Berlin manuscripts mainly consist of pharmacotherapy and magic, but also include some descriptions of hands-on manipulations, MS 8014. The vast amount of apotropaic recipes for childbirth complications indicate that the abandonment of ritual instructions Firth has identified in late imperial printed literature, Firth 1999-178, did not occur in folk medicine. just as a practice like pricking the fetus with a needle to make it turn, MS 8538, had apparently survived since pre-Tang times, Li 2006, 141. So were amulets, spells, or objects that magically corresponded to childbirth still applied to hasten delivery by the authors of the manuscripts, MS 8121. Abortion Zheng Jinsheng has analyzed the methods of abortion in the Berlin collection and compared them to ones from printed literature, Zheng 2013. The percentage of such recipes is significantly higher in the manuscripts, and recipes consist of highly toxic substances that were often applied externally through the vagina instead of being ingested orally. Examining legal case studies, Matthew Summer concluded that, far from being a widespread safe instrument of birth control, abortion in Qing China was potentially incriminating for the practitioner, unreliable, and bore considerable risks for a woman's health. Summer 2010. His FNDings may explain the caution and criticism concerning the termination of pregnancies that become apparent in printed literature, but the evidence in the manuscripts indicates that abortion did indeed constitute a considerable part of popular gynecology. Dietetics Ute Engelhardt, 2001, 173, has noted the lack of differentiation between foodstuffs and medicinal drugs in the Mwangdui manuscripts, and has identified the emergence of a distinction between drug and dietary therapy in Tang Dynasty medical literature. The fact that there is not one specialized manuscript on dietetics in the Berlin collection indicates that such literati dietetics was not part of folk medicine. In the 1960s, the Andersons still observed that food graded into medicine and medicine graded into food in Chinese folk practice, and diet and medicine were closely interconnected. Anderson and Anderson, 1975, 154. Thus, in addition to proper therapeutic food recipes, MS 8148, we FND recipes that could qualify as dietetic ones in various medical recipe manuscripts. MS 8051 lists preparations with candle wax to treat hunger and therapeutic food recipes such as soup of pork, belly and toad, carp stuffed with salt and medicinals to be eaten with gruel, or chives boiled in pig's blood side by side with pharmaceutical recipes. At the same time, medical recipes are often flanked with dietary recommendations and prohibitions. The origins of these instructions may be traced back to notions about magical correspondences, Engelhardt 2001, 183, or the thermic qualities of foodstuffs, Anderson and Anderson 1975, 144-8, Zhang 1989, 149-57, but some, like the prohibition of salt in cases of abdominal drum distension, gujang, were apparently based on practical observation rather than theory. Magico-religious practices. Apotropaic manuscripts have three main purposes: banning evil, that is, pathogenic influences; divination, in order to predict the outcome of a disease and to identify its cause; and healing illness. It might be a point of discussion whether hemorrhagical and calendrical calculations should be counted as magic, but they are so closely interwoven with demonological ideas in the manuscripts that it seems suitable to do so here. The eclectic apotropaic practices revealed by the Berlin collection correspond with the mutual influences between beliefs and healing rituals of Buddhism, Taoism, and folk religions Strickmann and Sivin, identified in song and pre-song texts. Strickmann 2002, Sivin 2015. 22. In several manuscripts we encounter figures from local popular cults, Taoist rituals, Buddhist phrases and deities. MS 8012, Mississippi 8390, Mississippi 8408, Mississippi 8564, Mississippi 8721, or ideas from Indian astrology. MS 8651.23. We FND practices resembling those described in ancient manuscripts. Harper 1998, 148-83. Song medical works and late imperial Juyu manuals. Cho 2005, 47, 53, 71-9, 2013. 7884, 94-9, Lin 2013, as well as those performed by ritual specialists in modern Taiwan, Gould Martin 1975, Kleinman 1980, 210-42, Zhang 1989, 74-82, 89-90. Obviously, the magico-religious therapies recorded by the authors of the collection were neither new, nor did they fade into oblivion in modern times. Rituals. Healing rituals usually included the application of amulets, spells, and incantations and ritual movements, but some also showed distinctive features. As in earlier texts, Taoist healing rituals in the manuscripts projected secular, bureaucratic processes onto the spirit world, MS 8650. And the appropriate treatments consisted of petitions, lawsuits, and the like. 24 rituals involved the use of free, nails, or a sword made of wood with magical properties, or less elaborately, the burning of paper money or the removal of objects from the house, MS 8184 Mississippi 8794. Harper advocates the connection between ancient Southern traditions of spitting and spouting and Qing local exorcistic traditions, Harper 1998, 17983. Healing rituals involving amulets and spitting were reported from a 1970s Taiwanese village as well, Gould Martin 1975, 121. Thus, manuscripts that list similar methods, MS 8407, provide another clue for the transmission of ancient apotropaic techniques through the centuries. Amulets. Maybe the most important magical therapy described in the manuscripts is the application of amulets. Amulets were usually written on paper, burnt and ingested, sometimes together with decoctions of pharmaceutical substances, MS 8070. People also placed such charms in the house, for example, nailing them to the door or keeping them underneath the pillow, carried them on the body, or wrote them directly onto the skin. The manuscripts reveal a wide variety of amulets, ones with written magical characters and spells, ones without any fixed form of writing at all, some that consist of diagrams, and one with images of star constellations, MS 8407. The application of an amulet was usually accompanied by a spell or incantation, in some cases also with the performance of ritual movements, spells and incantations. Spells and incantations usually consisted of requests for assistance from numinous powers such as spirits, animals, celestial bureaucrats or natural forces, or of interdictions directed towards harmful influences. While spells were written on amulets or other places, incantations were recited during amulet application, acupuncture, the performance of physical postures and gestures, or any other sort of ritual movements. The hand gestures illustrated in some manuscripts, Unschuld and Jung 2012, 158-60, are strongly reminiscent of Indian mudras. Such funga seals, yin-yin, had apparently been transmitted through the ages since medieval times. Strickman 1995, Strickman 2002, CHS 4 and 6, Cho 2005, 73-5. Different types of gestures were believed to ban evil or invoke favorable influences, MS 8270, Mississippi 8806, and some were used for divination, MS 8565.25. The feet of the religious specialists served as ritual instruments as well. Just one example is the Step of Yu, Yubu Yubu, Mississippi 8588, which we FND referred to as early as the Warring States, Harper 1998, 167-9, thus serving as another proof for the ancient origin of 20th century ritual acts, calendrics, divination, and demonology. The Berlin collection reveals abundant information on practices that combined calendrical calculation, divination, and demonological ideas. 26 specific demons were associated with certain days of the year that were calculated according to the 60-day cycle of the stems and branches, MS 81 and 84, Mississippi 85 and 54, Mississippi 8309, the 30 days of the month, MS 81-84, Mississippi 8563, or the 8 trigrams, MS 80-60-10, Mississippi 8611. The birth date, date of consultation, or the time of onset of an illness were used to determine the demonological cause of a disease and to choose the appropriate ritual treatment. The diviner might gain additional information by the assessment of cardinal directions, the FEV transitional phases, dreams and bodily manifestations, MS 8268, or the random tossing of glossy objects, MS 8656. The application of the emolument and horse diagram, MS 8439, as well as the calculation of auspicious and inauspicious years according to Indian astrology, MS 8651, are other methods of divination found in the manuscripts Unschuld and Zheng 2012, 162-74. Summary: we've now identified some aspects of folk therapies in the Berlin collection: simple pharmacotherapy, piercing and cauterization, surgical and manual techniques, obstetrics and abortion, folk dietetic and magical healing. In comparison with literati medicine and its asserted emphasis on elaborate cosmological and pathophysiological theory, the constituting factors for folk medicine and its therapies were practical and magico-religious. Treatments had to be readily available and profitable, and effectiveness was assessed by experience, magical belief, or sometimes alternative theory. Each practice deserves closer attention in itself, but the interconnections between different therapies and traditions appear to be a fascinating field of research as well. Not only were acumoxa and pharmaceutics closely connected to magical healing, folk and literati medicine as a whole reveal large areas of intersection. Even the daily practice of regular physicians, though grounded in varying degrees of literary medical education, was permeated with practical and economical considerations or magico-religious notions, thus including the use of local drugs, dirty substances, single-ingredient recipes, piercing techniques, trickery, or ritual. These practices appear in various genres of literature, even if read closely in printed medical books, and the manuscripts provide a valuable additional source for a bottom-up approach to the history of medicine in China.